Our next guest is a professional Scrum trainer and Agile aficionado who's been navigating the Scrum seas since 2006, despite initially not knowing which way the Agile wind was blowing. With over 17 years of experience, Stefan has worn many different Agile hats, from Scrum Master to Product Owner to Agile Coach, in every transformation, focusing on culture. Stefan is also a product creator. Stefan not only mastered Scrum, but also became the community's go-to person, blogging away, creating the Food for Agile Thought newsletter, hosting a global Slack community for Agile enthusiasts, and organizing the Agile Camp Berlin, and recently writing a book, Scrum Anti-Patterns Guide. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stefan Wolpers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana. Thanks a lot for hosting me today.
Our pleasure, Stefan.
So, you may have heard I spent a lot of time last year creating a book, writing a book, which was exciting, I can tell you. So if you want to learn something, write a book about it. It really helps with the process. I picked a few of my favorite anti-patterns from that book. And some of you may know me. I like to make these little doodles, and I hope you will enjoy them too. So that's the purpose. I will now switch into presentation mode, so I will not see you anymore, but I can still hear you. So let's see where this is going. So let me explain a bit about my idea of what Agile is. So first of all, it can't be pushed; it needs to be pulled, which is a massive issue for a lot of organizations in my experience, because they believe they can roll out something like Agile, hire Mac Boston and provide a budget, and 12 months later you're Agile, which of course as an idea is completely ludicrous. Instead, becoming Agile requires a few things. For example, switch to a different mindset, which is particularly problematic if you're a larger organization and you're probably a bit more old-fashioned. This is really, really an issue. You need to change the culture. And as culture is regularly following the structure of an organization, it requires a lot of doing at that level too, mainly descaling the organization. So, in other words, get rid of the 28 layers of middle management and empower the people closest to the problem to actually solve them. Of course, within available guardrails, guidelines, governance rules, etc. Okay. So that's the basic idea that you are facing when we talk about, okay, we want to become Agile as an organization, which, by the way, already in and of itself is quite a feat. So, in no particular order, just let me pick a few of my favorite anti-patterns I've encountered over the years. So the first one that comes to my mind always is precise estimates. This, of course, is an oxymoron, because estimates or forecasts that are, per definition, not accurate. So this we only know after the effect that what kind of effort something was, and we can't predict it in advance, because mainly we are working in a complex environment with a lot of uncertainty involved. So when a team gets good at actually figuring out and forecasting what might happen, it's always a rule of thumb. No matter how much effort you pour onto it, it will be precise. If it were precise, it wouldn't be estimates. But a lot of people do not understand what this means. So they still have this idea of the old industrial age where you could more or less predict how many refrigerators you would assemble during a shift, if nothing happened, of course. And in our case, this is completely off. Very, very interesting that people still believe that there is something like a precise estimate. and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of velocity and no estimates and don't waste any time on doing this and Monte Carlo estimation. I think you know what I'm talking about here. So it's really a futile exercise. Next, dogmatism. So there's the Scrum Guide, and I don't know when you last checked the Scrum Guide. It's I think about 13 pages if you have the PDF, and you choose at least the European format, and it includes the cover and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of content in there, and there's also this one revealing sentence in there that's an intentionally incomplete framework. So a framework, by the original meaning of the word, it's not a methodology. You don't expect an answer to all the eventualities of life in there. That does not happen. It has a set of first principles, and everything is built on top of them. And then you take it from there. It needs to be incomplete and flexible for a simple reason. You will always find different scenarios wherever you go. And if you want to benefit from becoming agile, or for example, using Scrum, it certainly helps if you can actually tweak the whole approach to the context that you are working in. So dogmatism per se is completely unagile. You need to be flexible. This is what it's all about. Try to figure out what is working for you in the given context. It's not about replicating the Scrum Guide, for example. We're not paid to practice Scrum. We're always paid to solve our customers' problems within the given constraints and contributing to the bottom line of our organization at the same time. This is the name of the game. It's not about dogmatism. So whenever people start waving the Scrum Guide in front of your nose, pointing to, it's not mentioned in the Scrum Guide, it's always a bad sign. There's a lot of work to be done. So number 2, dogmatism. The next one, number 3, the oversized product backlog. There is this, I don't know about you, but from time to time, I'm asked to do some sort of analysis why teams are not really performing to their potential. What is impeding them? How are they hampered? What can we do to help the team? And I always start with looking at the product backlog. So I like to call it the forensic analysis of the product backlog because it sounds cool. But basically, I go through the content of the product backlog and try to figure out what's going on there. And very often what you see is that teams that are not really living up to the potential they have, given the people who are on the team, they all suffer from an oversized product backlog. And worse, there are other issues with the product backlog. For example, it comprises of ideas, of entries of items with little to no explanation whatsoever, with items that are completely overaged, so that haven't been touched in months or years even, and it's a complete blow, right? You get such a package, hundreds, thousands of issues of items added to the product backlog. You always ask yourself, okay, how do they manage this? How can they keep an overview of what is going on in the product backlog? I mean, if we strictly stick with Scrum, so the idea of the product backlog is it's a reflection of our understanding how we can accomplish the product goal or the next big midterm goal that we are having as a team. And it's dynamic. It reflects our understanding of the situation. I think at a certain moment in time, it's a snapshot in that respect. And by all means, you want to keep it short and actionable. A good product backlog shall invite people to collaborate. It shall guide the team onto the right track to maximize value creation. And you all skip that if you start oversizing your product backlog. It's really a problem. And I always like to say that the trash bin is your friend. So get rid of all the stuff. If you haven't touched an item in the product backlog for 3 months, just delete it. It's outdated anyway, so you very likely have to start from scratch. And B, if you haven't worked on this for 3 months, basically it's not that valuable anyway. So get rid of it. So I don't know about you, but I like short, actionable product backlogs. Maybe 100 entries at the most. Anything beyond that is by all means really not helpful. It's more distracting and it's more hampering the team than actually creating value. So keep your product backlogs short and actionable. That would be my suggestion. Developers develop, period. There is this crazy idea that developers, if we talk about software development, that developers only create code or directly work on the product and they do nothing else. I think this is a grave mistake for a simple reason. If you want to benefit from the wisdom of all team members, they need to have a good understanding of the big picture. What is this all about? Why are we heading in what kind of direction? What are we supposed to do? How we will do this? A lot of discussions going on. So from my perspective, the first job of a developer is not to create an increment. It's to figure out what is worth building, what is valuable within the given constraints from a customer perspective, as well as the organizational perspective. So that's the main task. And once you figure that out, your job is to create that increment, to create that value with as little work as possible. And so I've always been an advocate of my developers joining product discovery as early as possible. For example, in my experience, some developers make excellent interviewers in user research. Of course, they need to be educated and trained how to do this, etc. pp. But some get really, really skilled at this. And so it's always been a lot of fun from my perspective to see how they get involved in the whole product discovery process and fully understanding what the customer actually is facing as a problem. Another issue is that I always advocate that everyone on the team should regularly work in customer care to fix everyday problems of the customers using your product. For a very simple reason, you get a good understanding what is going on, where the issues are, what is problematic from the customer perspective. And it's a very easy way to get a really good holistic perspective on the product you're using, you're creating, and you're trying to sell. And I believe that's mission critical if you want to become agile. So everyone on the team should be involved in product discovery activities. Of course, they need to volunteer for that. You can't force anyone to do that. But it's a fallacy to believe that the developers only develop. That's not the case. At least it shouldn't be the case. So, number 5, we know what to do. So there's this idea that our stakeholders exactly know what our customers need, what they are willing to pay for, or how we can solve the problems. And in my experience, this is simply not the case. No one knows that exactly. Even if we invest significantly in product discovery, we're just validating hypotheses to a certain level until we feel good enough that we could say, okay, now we're willing to make an investment decision by transferring our hypotheses into the product backlog and then actually start working on it. Because honestly, you don't want to build something, throw it at the wall and figure out whether it's sticking. That is not a good idea. And it's a very expensive idea, of course, because you pay a lot of money for actually creating that increment, and B, there are opportunity costs. So during the time where you build something that no one wants, you could have built something else that is actually valuable. That's like adding insult to injury, right? So the idea that we know what our customers want is really not helpful, because we actually don't know. We may have hints, there may be clues, we may have data pointing in a certain direction, but by all means, we can only take this as hypotheses and then figure out whether it's worth validating them by running experiments, building prototypes, etc. So there's no shortcut to this. Exception might be that there is a legal requirement that you need to adhere to. Of course, then it's significantly easier. But in the normal space, when we try to sell a product in competition with others on the market, we simply don't know what our customers want, and you can't ask them, right? Because like the old Steve Jobs quote, it's very hard to create product by focus groups because very often you have to show people to help them understand what they need. So it really doesn't work this way. Number 6, skipping Agile in a crisis. I don't know about you, but I've had several situations where being Agile was somehow relegated and limited to fair weather sailing. So the sun was shining, the wind was soft, there was no waves, and then you're allowed to do Agile. The moment that changes a bit, it's all pulled back, then the boss jumps back into action, taking control and decisively forging the fortune and the fate of the organization for years to come, single-handedly slaying the dragon or whatnot, And you always have to say, okay, why are we doing this? What is the reason for that? Shouldn't we be able to deal with the crisis in exactly the same way we are dealing with normal daily operations by being agile, focusing on what is most pressing at the moment, what is most valuable to address first? So this fair weather sailing, as far as Agile is concerned, is very, very strange from my perspective, and by all means, definite lack of trust on the leadership side. Number 7, project management in disguise. So that's another issue that you will probably already have encountered with a lot of your colleagues, particularly on the side of Scrum Masters and product owners or product managers who consider Agile to be, okay, whatever it is, I don't care, I have my plan and we will work on my plan because I'm invested in my plan. I probably link my personal ego to that plan and it won't fail. I won't allow it to fail. And then they basically start to reintroduce some sort of project management through the back door. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. In the sprint planning, the product owner starts not sharing the business objective for the next sprint, but actually already formulates the sprint goal and then picks the work that you have to do to accomplish the sprint goal. I think you get an understanding how this might work out. This is not the purpose of Agile, by all means. Where Agile is working well when you build it around self-managing teams of professionals who know what they're doing, who are dedicated to solve the customer's problems, but who are not told what to do, when, where, and how. It's this idea of the empowered product team in the multi-cadence sense. And my takeaway always is avoid falling back into old patterns of behavior if you do this, and try to address these issues as soon as possible. So, no project management in disguise. Agile is not a fad, it's a trend, and you better live up to what is expected from you if you are in a leading position on the team. So, that was number 7. Number 8, the lonely team. So, I don't know about you. Have you ever participated in a sprint review and the team were the only attendees? So there was no one else there, no stakeholder, and no one else interested in what you've been doing. Instead, they were asking for, please write me a report. I can quickly skim, or I can ask ChatGPT to summarize and compare it to the previous report because I don't have time to join you. That's really an issue from a team's perspective, because it's all modeled after the old build, measure, learn principle. We need feedback, and we need feedback as quickly as possible because we're actually spending a lot of money every single day, and we want to be sure that we are moving in the right direction, solving our customers' problems while contributing to our organization's bottom line. And if we do not get feedback from our stakeholders, that is really, really tricky. So it's not simple. There was one occasion when we were 4 teams in total, and no one showed up whenever we had a sprint review. And we thought about, okay, how can we overcome this? So we started to, on the side, give away small favors to those few stakeholders who actually appeared and attended the sprint review. And they were totally happy about this, but because we were fixing a small bug or did a lot of tweaking here and a lot of tweaking there, and they really enjoyed this. And word spread and got around, and so slowly but steadily over the following weeks, more and more people came until we had so many stakeholders with us that we could stop actually giving away little bribes, and we then switched back into the real mode, because by now they already understood, hey, this is not a waste of my time if I attend the sprint review. It's actually massively important to get the whole teams or get all the teams on the right track and help the organization meet its goals that are so important to everyone. So the lonely team, you can't blame stakeholders for that. I would say if no one shows up, you probably fail to let them know why this is important to the team, but also why it is valuable to them. So you probably need to invest a bit more time to actually make this happen. So get used to the idea that you have to sell it to the organization at a certain level. If it's a larger organization, why not print some agendas and put them on the tables in the cafeteria? Create posters and stick them to the elevators and create a preliminary sprint report and send it out to all the people you invited. If it's not what it takes, so to do this. I know there is no sprint review report mentioned in the Scrum guide, but bait the hook, feed the fish. So it's our job to get the people into the room so we can actually have this discussion. It's not about being dogmatic about, no, we don't send reports by email because that is not Scrum or not Agile. It won't get you where you want to be. So the lonely team, you really have to work on this. The need for control. Yes. I don't know whether you've worked in large organizations, probably a siloed organization where the people are very competitive about preserving their home turf, their budgets, the people that they have on. So I was really having a lot of discussions with one individual in a large organization who was in charge of QA. Don't ask. QA was a separate instance, a separate silo. It was, although completely unnecessary in our case, that individual always insisted to have a look at participate in the retrospectives, because they mentioned, we would need to know what is going on, because otherwise we can't help you. And then they try to insist on receiving the minutes from the retrospective. And in all cases, we always said no. And I was curious about this. And they couldn't understand what's going on here. And we diffused the situation a bit to the extent that they regularly had stakeholder retrospectives. And of course, we invited that individual as well to that special retrospective, among other stakeholders. But nevertheless, we're still very grumpy about not being allowed to look at the minutes or even participate in the real team retrospective. And of course, a bit Sparta always helps. It's like pirates and movies, so come and take them, really. It's fun. So, no quality. So, classic issue with being agile is that you're really good at figuring out what the next big thing is, but then you unfortunately have a tech stack that does not allow to do anything with that insight. And I mean, when we talk about we like to become agile as an organization, agility is always about learning faster than the competition and then also managing to take that advantage and turn it into marketable products and services. Be earlier in the market than your competitors. Now, it doesn't matter how good you are at figuring out what the next big thing is. If you cannot follow up because your tech stack is in a state that does not allow to move anywhere, not to mention to move any more fast, you basically already lost. You're wasting your resources on product discovery because you can't follow up. So preserving a high level of technical excellence on the people side as far as skills are concerned, tools are concerned, as well as on the overall quality of your tech stack is mission critical. Without quality and excellence, there won't be any form of business agility. And it's a cultural question. It's a bit like answering the question, okay, why is Apple paying so much time on getting the design of its devices right on the inside, when no one looks, because it's a mindset. It's a part of their culture. They want to be excellent at what they do, and that is making them so successful. And you should take that as a good example. So whatever you do, make sure that your definition of done is really up to the job. Inspect and adapt your definition of done regularly, improve its quality, branch out into adjacent areas, and ensure that your team is actually capable of delivering the quality it wants to deliver. Also, no cutting corners. No crazy deadlines that only can be accomplished if you sacrifice quality. This is all out of the question, and you have to really fight for this. And many organizations, because it's so easy to actually skip on preserving technical quality. Of course, there might be a question or two when you think about, okay, shall we die in beauty? The classic case is always the startup that is running out of money. So you have, imagine the following scenario: you have a runway of 2 months left, and you desperately need to meet a milestone that you agreed upon with your investors for the next funding round. And but if you stick to your usual definition of done, it will take you 4 months. Now, what you are going to do? Will you say, no, we stick to the definition of done and you will die in beauty? I mean, as a developer, you probably easily get a new job, but what about the 40 people that work in customer care and sales and marketing and operations and accounting? What will they do? Or do you say, okay, we will cut some corners here, we will use some gaffer tape and make it work and some glue here and there. But after that, once we accomplish the milestone and we cash in on the new funding round, we go back and fix it. That might be an alternative. But otherwise, if you're not in a desperate situation, make sure that the quality of your product is never harmed in that way. Autonomy. So, whatever flavor of Agile is your favorite one, it's always somehow built around autonomy. And also the people closest to the problem are making their own decisions how to address the problem within the given constraints of the organization or governance rules, legal requirements, whatnot. But there is always this moment of self-management. Scrum, for example, has a very delicate checks and balances system built into it deliberately. You may have noticed Scrum is a quite egalitarian way of handling things. No one has any authority to tell anyone how to do things, when to do things, and when not to do things. I mean, this really does not happen. Think about this. Product owner brings the business objective to the sprint planning. The team creates the sprint goal aligned with the business objective. The developers commit to the sprint goal And because of that, they are allowed to pick the work that they deem necessary to accomplish the sprint goal. And no one can tell them how to turn the work they picked into an increment. That's completely up to them. There's a reason for that. And by the way, we also do not have an approval process for done increments, right? Whenever we believe that something meets the definition of done, it automatically turns into an increment. There is no process of stage gating, approvals, rubber stamping things. No, it doesn't exist. No, we trust each other and we believe in our principles and our standards. That's it. And this is, I believe, a mission-critical part of every Agile team to become successful at what they do. They need autonomy. You don't tell people what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. You just explain to them where they need to be. And then you are surprised how they will get there. And this, by the way, was just a butchered quote from the U.S. general from World War II, from George S. Patton. So Agile is not that new. Just keep that in mind. It did not start with the Agile Manifesto. And autonomy also not. This goes back into the 19th century. If you enter this, look for something like Commander's Intent, Prussian Army, etc., pp., and you will find a lot of interesting things. Why autonomy is mission critical if you want to be successful. Okay, and the last one, self-management as a lip service. It's a bit variation of the autonomy part. Yes, of course, we totally embrace self-management as a basic principle of your work. It's totally fine. However, we're going to design the system in a way that you actually push in the right direction that we want. So if companies start to build on velocity, compare teams based on velocity, expect that a good team increases velocity all the time, you're already working in the wrong organization, because this is completely ludicrous. Life is not working this way. Particularly velocity is totally toxic. It may be an acceptable metric for team internal purposes, but the moment you take it outside the team, it's just creating havoc everywhere it's applied, right? And the crazy thing is that a lot of managers still like it, because they enjoy the idea of being in control. Of course, it's a fallacy. No one is in control in a complex environment with a lot of uncertainty. But they, of course, would not like to admit this, because then they would also admit that most of the outcome of their work is more or less based on luck and not their skillful managing the operations. And a lot of people don't like that. Okay, so that was number 12. And if you'd like to read more about this stuff, I have about 180 of those collected in my book, and it's available. And I still believe it's a good investment because you can use it at a tactical level. You can kick off a lot of discussions. I put a lot of emphasis on actually helping everyone understand why things are the way they are, because there's always a reason for that. And so it's really helpful in that respect. So if you'd like to have a bit of help from that perspective, consider the book. It's really a great way. And there's a lot of way of meeting me. You probably know that I write the Food for Agile Thought newsletter, which is I've been doing I think it's 438 the issue that is coming up next tomorrow and on the weekend. And I have a lot of websites, blog posts, and I will write on scrum.org all the time. And I hope you enjoyed this little exercise we had here. And I think we have at least 20 minutes for questions and answers if you would like to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Stefan, for sharing those points with us. And yes, if we have any questions, you can unmute yourself. Everybody can unmute yourself, or you can type them in the chat if you're shy, and I can read them. Do we have any questions for Stefan? Okay, so Stefan, as everybody is warming up, I have actually one question.
Sure.
If you could maybe give us some starting point, how to persuade the minds, where to start the conversations. So, all those anti-patterns that you share with us, they very much resonate with me personally, that I've seen in many organizations. But I think one, the most challenging, at least personally, is this project management mindset. You have to do it by the 26th of May. But this is a mid of sprint. But you have to do it by Thursday, 26th of May. And it's like this date-driven development, which is very difficult to persuade people who are coming from the traditional project management background to change that perspective, that view. What do you start? How do you go about that?
Oh my goodness. Marty Kagan just wrote a book about this called Transform, where he sketched a few of the ways how to get there. There are a lot of issues. It's a structural issue very often. It's the people on the teams. It's the organizational structure, even worse. So in my experience, when people start, you have to deliver something by a date. It's just another form of expressing their mistrust in your team's capabilities. And simply don't believe that you will be able to deliver in time for what they need. So from their perspective, they are depending on your team and they have no control over your team because they have no clue what you are doing. They just need your output, so to speak. So because they believe that what you will create will help them meet their OKRs, KPIs, quotas, whatnot. There's some reason why they need your work. And they will, of course, want to be sure that you are delivering in time, to help them out of the conundrum. The problem is that the only way out of this is basically transparency and building trust. And, of course, support from the leadership. And helping your stakeholders understand, okay, we're trying to change the system, how we are working here, and it's going to take some time. And we would like to help you both understand what is going on here and how you can collaborate and work together to make this happen in the future. So instead of one party is handing over requirements to the other party with a deadline, expecting them to deliver, it's more like, okay, get together and try to figure out what actually the problem is that we are facing and how we best can solve it. Because in my experience, very often requirements from your stakeholders are more or less educated guesses what might be helpful. It's not necessarily based on solid research that helps you understand what's going on. So switching this whole system, it's unfortunately not a single meeting. It's a process, and it's take a lot of time. And you need to have sponsoring from other people to help your stakeholders overcome this anxiety that they will be held responsible if your team is not delivering. This needs to go out of the way first, in my experience. And then, once we feel this relief, then we can start, okay, now that this cow is off the ice, and we talk about the rest, how we best get together and join forces, and how every party can bring what they're really good at. Stakeholders typically know the customer side very well. We know at least the technology side. And if we put all of these two things together, we can actually get somewhere. But it needs a bit of support. It's not coming by itself, and it's certainly not working by let's have a coffee and please guarantee that you will trust us from now on and stop sending us deadlines. Which is not going to fly.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much, Stefan, for sharing. I saw people were nodding their heads when you were speaking, so I think that resonates to more people than just me. More heads nodding. Yeah. Do we have any other questions for Stefan? Please feel free to unmute yourself or type the question.
By the way, the slides, Joanna has already the slides, so you will get them.
Yeah, and I just put in the comment area Yes, they will be distributed via newsletter, and there is also a link there. Please, if you're not on the newsletter, please sign up so you do not miss them, and you will get them together with recording. Okay, so if we don't have anybody else asking question, I will have one. Oh, Dave, you unmuted. Was it on purpose? Do you have any question?
I think with respect to the last challenge, I think for the most part, the reasons for this are that management usually has Scrum running in that. So, basically your devs the Scrum teams are running in a vacuum. They don't seem to want to get involved themselves in either learning Scrum or being part of Scrum. So that in and of itself, to me, has always been a problem. The idea of value streams, right? So everybody, if you believe in value streams, should be part of the solving, I guess, these sort of hiccups between teams. But if management is just going to be like, well, they can do their thing and I need to do my thing, and they're running either waterfall or whatever it is they feel like doing, this is how you wind up with these problems. The best managers are the ones that, believe in getting involved with Scrum, and they understand Scrum, at least to some degree. They understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, and they're not gonna have all the answers, but they understand enough to know, the philosophy and why it will help the teams to deliver better. But I don't think that most managers, either want to get involved with it or they won't get involved with it. And maybe that's why they're managers, because, by definition, management is pretty much command and control. Because if you weren't a manager, you're not command and control. You're at best a facilitator by definition. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I would have to agree with you on that, Dave. I know my manager, I had to convince him to have some faith in his team, because he would always tell me, you have kids, they know they're supposed to brush their teeth every night, but you always have to tell them to brush their teeth. And that was his attitude towards the team. He was always, I have to tell them what to do all the time. They know what to do, but I have to tell them. And I had to convince him to have faith in the team that he has, that they're a very talented group of people. They know what they're doing. And it's I guess the way I had to convince him was you hit the point when you're an adult and to brush your teeth. So you do it on your own and you take care of yourself. And so he had to see that, yes, they are at the adult stage of functioning. And so he kind of let go. And it was really hard for him to not have that power, that control over the team. And it was just convincing him to have faith. It took a little time, but he eventually came around. Once he saw them, they had to kind of convince him. So that was kind of my experience.
It's like doing Agile versus being Agile. Yeah. And with my kids, what I do with them is I tell them what to do, so more or less doing Agile, but I also explain to them why they're doing it, what the advantages are, how it's going to help you. So I want them to be Agile. I want them to make better decisions going forward. And so I try to work with managers to get them to understand being Agile versus doing Agile. But I don't know what it is. They just don't seem to want to get involved. And it really is very frustrating. I had one manager that I thought was really good, and he would meet with me maybe a couple times a week, and he wanted to be kept informed. And he said, I want to know what's going on. I want to be involved with this. And if you have any issues, please let me know what the issues are so I can support. Because again, it's not very easy to run a transformation as a facilitator, because you're always going to have like the hecklers, you're always going to have the people that, are very job secure. They've been in that job for 10 or 20 years and they don't feel like doing it because there's no advantage to them. So a lot of times in my opinion, you have to get managers involved to sort of help facilitate that transformation. And if you have a manager that hired you, let's say as a contractor, to come in there and get that transformation going, but you don't have air support, in my experience, there's a good chance you're not going to be successful. And on top of it, you're probably going to be fired, because it is very important to have a manager that believes in what you're doing, not just that it's the flavor of the month, so I'm going to hire you, but, we really believe that this is what we need to do to be better.
Manjek, sorry if I said it incorrectly.
That's okay. My name is Manjek, and hi everyone. I totally agree with you, Dave. I have the same situation, and what I want to say is the mindset. The mindset shouldn't be only for example, for business analyst or PO. It should be for the project managers as well. I guess that one of the reason is they think that they don't have power. If they want to share everything with the team, if they want to trust to the team, their power is going to be less. So that's the mindset that everyone who works in the Agile team should learn. And it's not easy. Still, the micromanagement is strong, and I believe it takes a while. At least they should send them there for training or something, that they understand exactly what is the Agile team and what is the collaboration and what is the trust in the Agile. That is the essence for a team. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Anybody else would like to share something or have some questions?
No, I was just, I was into great talk, Stefan. Thank you. I was interested I have a particular interest in the quality side of things. It's one of the areas. And I was interested in what you were saying about the technical debt and the definition of done and not cutting corners. And also the team having the autonomy and the retrospectives belong to them and their own improvement. But one of the things I've seen is that the definition of done, as I think Scrum talks about this, how the definition of done can apply to the team, but also how I sometimes see in organizations, they kind of mandate a kind of an organizational definition of done or a minimum standard. And that can be difficult because it can be a bit too prescriptive on the teams and take away their autonomy for their own process and their own improvement. But at the same time, what you want to see, I guess, is collaboration across teams around process and around good practice and how we can help each other and learn from each other in terms of how to do things better, basically, and how, if our quality isn't good enough, how we can improve that way of working to try and improve that. I'm just wondering, have you seen anything, Stefan, around that? People talk about communities of practice, or have you seen kind of what might work well in that situation, or any kind of anti-patterns around that, I suppose, or the opposite to anti-patterns in terms of how they address them?
Well, first of all, I would say that defining a quality standard is a team exercise, and the stakeholders should be a part of that exercise in that sense. So it does not mean quality does not mean we have to Rolls Royce everything, right? We just have to meet expectations of the market as well as legal requirements in that respect, and of course our own culture and our own expectations as far as our products are concerned. But starting from that, it's like a lot of other things in Agile. You regularly have to inspect and adapt, check, okay, are we still delivering at the level that we want to deliver? What would it take to actually improve our game here? How do we have to do we have to allocate more resources to what we do here to preserve our quality level here? Are there any issues that we see at the horizon that might challenge our current level of quality and that we need to take care of? So the best team I've ever worked with, they basically had a map of technical debt, so to speak. So they were very, very aware of what they were doing at a technical level. And whenever we talked about something that is in the product realm, in the sense that, okay, we need to work on this or that, and we would like to introduce a new feature, they were always talking about, okay, we can do this, but at the same time, we need to address the following issues that we have at the technical side. So it was really working in tandem, so that there was one thing on the product side, but at the same time, there was one thing at the technology side. And they were really good at this. And they were also very persistent. They were really, really dedicated to preserving what they built. There was a very high professional standard. And it was really fun working with them because they were really good at what they did. And they were fast. That we never ran into an issue where we said, yeah, we could probably would be a good idea, but we can't make it because of technical reasons or something like that. We were always delivering, and we were always delivering in time. So our stakeholders at the time were really, really well positioned, let me put this way, and I don't think they fully understood how exceptional the situation was at the time. But it was really working out, So that is still the gold standard. I'm trying to pitch to a lot of other teams. Be aware where the weak spots are, where you need to improve what you are doing to preserve your technical quality that you would like to achieve and to preserve the excellence that you aspire to.
I guess part of my question was about looking outside any particular team in terms of, I sometimes see maybe a lack of sharing across teams, if you know what I mean, in terms of that learning that takes place rather than it just being team-centric. I don't know, have you come across much of that?
I would. So alignment is a big issue, particularly if several teams are working on the same issue. I totally agree. And what has been successful in my experience is that you do not shy away to actually introduce your stakeholders to technology. And so sprint review, for example, is a good situation for that. So I have a very good experience with explaining, for example, API endpoints to your stakeholders, even if they do not have a technical understanding what we're talking about. You can show it how it works, so that they have a good understanding of what is actually going on under the hood, and that it's not all the, you want to avoid this iceberg syndrome where everyone just looks at the top of the thing, that's above the waterline, but they also need to be aware, hey. There's a lot under the waterline that you need to understand and take care of, And if you manage to explain to your stakeholders, hey, don't shy back, We don't expect you to be technically proficient as we are, but if you show some interest in that, and if you're willing to learn, we can help you in a significant way to better understand what you are doing or where you are moving. I mean, if your stakeholders start understanding, hey, wait a minute, this is a great idea. However, what about the technology side of this? I need to talk to them. How would they consider this? Is this feasible? Does it make sense from a business perspective? So it's a give and take. I expect my developers to be more proficient in business aspects. They need to know how much things are costing and what the decision is to spend another 5 hours on doing X. Where that makes sense, what the opportunity costs are, where there is a better investment for these 5 hours. I want to have the discussions in the team. And at the same time, I want my stakeholders to have a more intense feeling and understanding of technology. So this just goes hand in hand. And ideally, they talk to each other directly without any form of translation, via product owner and Scrum Master, coach, or whatnot. Delivery manager, whatever, whoever you like to involve in this, because there's always something lost in translation. This is an interesting part and always a critical thing. How do you get these two parties to talk to each other and take each other seriously? And I really like to put a lot of effort into that part, and so far it has served me well. But I have a small sample size, so I wouldn't generalize that one.
Thank you very much for answering that, and thank you for the discussion. Dave, I see your hand is up, so I propose what we'll do. Let me very quickly tell you about our upcoming meetup, and then whoever wants to drop, you can drop to be respectful to your time, and the rest we can stay and we can discuss it, and we can exchange our experiences. So just to let you know that for anybody who is based in Ireland, that our next meetup will take place on the 25th of April at 7:00. It will be in-person meetup and will take place in Galway. So it's Galway is not too far from anywhere, or at least Dublin and Midland. So it's an excuse for evening in Galway. And our speakers will be Fran, who is here, who asked the questions about the quality. I know, Fran, if you want to wave your hand so everybody knows, that Fran will be speaking. And then we will also have second speaker, which will be Dr. Olivia McDermott from the University of Galway, and she will be talking about Lean Six Sigma. So if you have, nothing to do, please, visit us in person on the 25th of April in Galway. The slides, as I mentioned, summarizing the slides and video recording from this session will be shared via newsletter. So please go to the chat and subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss it if you want to receive it. And Stefan, thank you very much for sharing with us, giving us, a sample of what we can find in your book. As everybody noticed, it's very practical. We all encounter probably most of those cases, and now just thinking, maybe collectively discussing how to go about it. So thank you very much for your time, Stefan.
Thanks a lot for hosting me. That was a real pleasure.
Thank you. And I would suggest anybody who wants, please drop. So we want to be respectful of your time. And David, your hand was up. So do you still want to ask the question, David, or comment?
Well, I was just going to comment about the last topic that was being talked about. So definition of done. You really need to have that. And that could just be as simple as a developer's checklist across the board. The definition of done is not for something like a specific user story. Definition of done is to be used across all user stories. So I would say that would be the minimum that would be in common. So things like, okay, do we have to update any documentation with this software fix? It could be as complicated as, do we need to add, or have we added extra exception handling for the software? Have we added storage such that if we have a crash, we will have recorded a bunch of objects that we can go back and look at to help us be able to debug software faster. So there's so many things. As far as the learning part of it, I run dojos. I try to run them once a week, and I try to have the technical people run them. Sometimes I will do something in Scrum or Agile or Kanban or DevOps, lunch and learns, and also you're supposed to run continuous learning at PI planning as well. That's supposed to be a section where sometimes if it's work learning, sometimes it's fun learning, just to give everybody a break after working so hard through the quarter, basically. So, but all of these things, but I think you have to, a minimum, you have to have definition of done, because otherwise you're just running the Wild West, basically.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much for sharing, Dave. And just one comment that, it's not all about software development. I think you get used to using IT terminology because that's where the methodology was predominantly used. But now we have more and more companies who are scaling agile mindset to the whole organizations. And so it's also, like when you think about your definition of done, it's very generic, but as you said, it's not for particular store. It's generic to cover increment. How do we know that it's done to our standards, but doesn't have to be technical. So we will, please don't think only in technical. Help me, somebody, technical what?
Like a specific domain. In
Yeah.
fact, I have adapted Scrum for hardware engineers, test engineers, DevOps, and I've also adapted it for systems engineers as well. So you're correct. And that's actually addressed in the 2020 Scrum Guide as well, as that they are very happy that it has expanded beyond software. But it was designed by software engineers for software engineers, but it's very easy to adapt if you have the agile mindset. It's really just a bunch of ideas that you implement, just guardrails that help you to do a better job. But it's not a magic bullet. If you don't have, Scrum assumes that you have the technical knowledge to get the work done. So if you have a team of developers, but they don't know how to write code, then nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for sharing that. And also, I'm getting some comments in the chat that not all of us are in software environments. Yes, Scrum has huge application now, and for the past 4 years, personally myself, I work mainly in non-tech teams. So that's why I'm kind of like making everybody conscious about it. We have many coaches who I think it's nice to use plain English so everybody can understand. We are getting broader audience to those meetups because we also have non-tech agile teams and people want to learn. So it's nice to be conscious when we are giving examples to give them in the plain English and also outside more neutral so they can resonate with everybody. And then I have another comment here. So the same person wrote that it's not software, it's for writing books and not code. Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for contributing and sharing. That was really nice discussion at the end. So we are very happy that you enjoy it and you find it valuable. And we encourage you to reach for the book and to write. As Stefan said, Stefan, how many cases do you have there? Over 180? How many?
Yeah, it's about 180, but it's just, the ones I mentioned.
The most common, probably. Yeah. So we just
more.
So we just touch it, tap on it. So feel free to reach for the book to learn more. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks very much, Stefan, for sharing those examples with us today.